Arcane is a series about life-altering gambles. What happens when the dice of destiny don't roll your way? This is where the story of Powder and Jinx comes into play. It takes place in the darkest depths of Zaun, an undercity that has long been forgotten and neglected, all in the name of progress. The adjacent upper city of Piltover magnificently towers above and sparkles brilliantly, while the inhabitants of Zaun are left in the shadows where no rays of hope get the shine. Civil unrest between both sides led to a massive conflict and many lives were lost. Powder and her older sister Vi are some of the orphans that got left behind in the nightmarish aftermath. Driven by their resentment and desire for revenge, both sisters learn to become survivors. They're still young, but they have what it takes to adapt in the harshest of environments. Vi decides it's finally time to strike back, so she organizes a heist in the upper city together with Powder and their two other adoptive brothers. They bite off more than they can chew though, and things go south fast. They barely escaped by the skin of their teeth, but Powder had to abandon the loot they collected in order to save herself. Vander, the adoptive father of the kids, is relieved to see they all managed to survive, but he knows too well they won't get so lucky for the second time around. He makes it very loud and clear to Vi that the lives of her siblings are in her hands since they deeply respect her as their leading figure. Whatever happens to them is her responsibility. Unfortunately, the kids are now all wanted criminals and the upper city enforcers will do anything in their power to find them. This disrupts the balance of the lower city, and the most sinister serpents from the underground use this opportunity to strike from the shadows. Vander gets captured by Silco, an old friend who used to be like a brother to him. They used to dream of freedom together, for a better world where they won't get stomped by the upper city. Silco was eventually betrayed by his brother, and the only thing that kept him alive was his resentment for this unjust society. One day he'll show them all just who they're dealing with. Vi and her brothers decide to team up in order to try and save Vander. Powder gets left behind since Vi realizes how dangerous the situation is. Powder loses her cool since she knows her siblings may never return if she doesn't do something about it. After the heist, she held onto some mysterious hex crystals and realizes these will act as the key to saving her precious siblings. Vi, Milo, and Clagger are naive. They easily reach Vander only to be immediately woken up by the harsh reality that they fell straight into Silco's trap. They're stuck and they brace themselves for a hopeless fight. Powder's suspicions are confirmed, as she told her siblings and witnessed firsthand just how dire their situation is. Powder's naive too, as she doesn't realize how destructive the hex crystals truly are. In the blink of an eye, everything falls apart. Just as rays of hope were beginning to shine for her family, their escape comes to sudden close when Powder's contraption causes multiple explosions. As that moment of sheer destruction played out, Powder saw its true beauty and was mesmerized by the flames of chaos that she unleashed. She fully embraces the danger rather than being terrified by it. In the aftermath, Milo and Clagger are crushed by the rubble. Vi is trapped, and Vander makes a desperate last-ditch effort to save her, sacrificing himself in the process. Here, we also get to see how they were situated on a top floor. Even if things were looking up for them, they would have still been trapped at that height. From my point of view, their false sense of hope would have been shattered sooner or later. Powder's actions only accelerated the inevitable. Their fates were sealed either way. They simply never had the chance or time to realize their doom was imminent as everything went awry. If Powder never showed up, it's likely Vi would have not survived either. In a sense, Powder saved her older sister, but the cost was too much to bear for Vi. As rage and grief overwhelm her, Vi confirms Powder's biggest fears, that she's a jinx that will only drag everyone down to their demise. Vi fails to meet her end of the bargain and never understood that Vander's words were true. The fate of her siblings was in her hands. When disaster struck, it was easier for her to shift the entire weight of the blame on Powder. Instead of taking responsibility for the outcome, she rejected her younger sister in the cruelest way possible. As Powder desperately pleads for Violet not to let go of their bond, Vi abandons her sister once and for all, which is a decision she'd come to regret for the rest of her life. By the time she decides to look back, it was already too late. Silco finds Powder and sees something special in her. From his point of view, everyone has a monster within that awaits to be awakened one day. The other bystanders are terrified by a crying girl, but he embraces her as he's the only one who truly understands what it's like to suffer from the ultimate kind of betrayal. As a viewer, I'll never forget the striking image of him holding a knife behind his back as he gently approaches Powder. I think this is a great shot that establishes their future father-daughter dynamic perfectly. Silco knows he's playing with fire, but he's a gambler who's placing all his bets on her. Nurturing the monster inside of Powder will be a dangerous task, but he's willing to pay the price no matter what. He knows true power only comes to those who are ready to sacrifice it all. After a few years, Powder becomes Jinx, and we get to see how much of a genius she truly is. With her beautiful neon colors on display, she's ready to let the whole world know loud and clear what it truly means to get jinxed. As the echoes of the past haunt her, she refuses to let go of those painful moments, even if it brings her down in flames. Powder is still within her heart, and it's holding her back. She's strong now, but her fragility bubbles to the surface whenever the memories of the past overflow inside her mind. The smallest trigger can make her completely lose her cool. Silco asks Jinx to take a bit of a break and focus on crafting her destructive gadgets instead. She despises the thought of being dead weight, so she recklessly steals a fortified hex crystal from the upper city. With this, she knows she's earned Silco's approval once again, since she desperately yearns to be embraced and acknowledged by him. Jinx is a gambler herself, so she's willing to do anything to come out on top. As she plays around with this new destructive technology, she gets flashbacks of the day that changed her life forever. Her fear makes her back down. Jinx constantly feels the need to prove her worth and just how strong she is. Disappointing Silco is out of the question, since the weak ones get left behind, and Jinx won't ever allow herself to be abandoned again. She's still too afraid to move forward, as her past is holding her back. Silco realizes this and knows exactly what needs to be done. He encourages Jinx to be reborn from the powders of her past, leaving all her fears behind. Silco lets her know that Jinx is perfect just the way she is. Those words of acceptance were exactly what she needed. The thrill that came with embracing her truest self unlocked her full potential and allowed her to create the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. Throughout all these years, Vi was also alive, but imprisoned with no chances of contacting the outside world. She gets freed by an enforcer named Caitlyn, and they team up to further investigate the corruption from the Undercity in hopes of recovering the fortified hex crystal. Silco thought Vi was dead, so he was utterly shocked to learn that she's back in Zaun. He decides it's for the best to hide this from Jinx, but she quickly finds out that he's hiding something. When Jinx thought she finally let go and freed herself from the chains of her past, she gets disrupted by her sister's sudden return. The last fragment of her former self still clings to Vi's promise from all those years ago, that she'd be there no matter what if she lit up the flare. Just as the flames of hope are about to burn out, her big sister keeps her promise and shows up. Their reunion is short-lived though, and it gets swiftly interrupted. Vi came back only to be snatched away right under her nose. Jinx decides to tie up loose ends with Silco, since she hates how he lied to her about her sister Vi for all these years. He reminds her how both of them share this painful, unbreakable bond as father and daughter. Only they know what it's like to suffer from the ultimate betrayal. Vi coming back doesn't mean anything, since she's the one who discarded Jinx all those years ago on that cursed day. Silco reminds Jinx how much he needs her help, and this was more than enough to convince her to continue their plans together. When Jinx needed it the most, Vi never listened to her younger sister as she desperately begged not to be abandoned. Jinx won't do the same to the one who was there for her. He drills it into her head that Vi and the enforcer Caitlyn are only there to recover the hex crystal, which is now in the possession of an outsider group that's known as the Firelights. The fight to recover the gemstone begins, and Jinx is out for blood. Things culminate with a bang, and Jinx takes some considerable damage. In the end, it turns out she outsmarted everyone, but at what cost? With her life barely hanging by a thread, Silco desperately does anything in his power to save his precious daughter. He won't let her sacrifice be in vain and believes in her strength to make it out alive. His tenacity made him cheat death once, and he knows Jinx has the same fighting spirit within herself. In order to survive, she has to undergo a grueling process that almost destroys her, but she ultimately pulls through. She's still Jinx, but something within her snapped, making her paranoia skyrocket to new levels. Silco gets an offer to potentially establish peace with the Upper City and obtain the power that he's yearned for his entire life. The cost is betraying Jinx, and this makes him spiral into an internal struggle to pick between the things he cares about the most. Jinx catches wind of this. While he may have not fully made his decision quite yet, she already did make hers. She won't allow Silco to betray her. She's been left behind too many times. She'll take matters into her own hands and claim her own destiny. This kickstarts her own twisted version of the Last Supper. Vi, Caitlyn, and Silco are all forced to participate. Vi receives an ultimatum where she decides which side of her sister lives or dies. If she agrees to dispose of Caitlyn, then Powder can come back. Otherwise, Jinx is here to stay permanently. Vi refuses to make such a choice, so a wild game of Russian roulette begins instead, where fate decides who lives and who gets to eat lead. This is the end of the road for Silco. With his final breaths, he reassures Jinx that he would have never betrayed her, no matter what. He lets her know for one last time that Jinx is perfect just the way she is. Silco may have lost his life, but in his eyes, his gamble paid off. He can truly rest in peace knowing Jinx will carry out his legacy as he envisioned it. Her internal battle is over. Powder is no more, and Jinx is her true self. Nothing can hold her back anymore as the tethers of her past are gone for good. Now she can truly unleash the chaos from her heart into the world. She'll show them all her ultimate creation, an artistic masterpiece of mass destruction that blooms into a magnificent flower of death. Jinx will become the voice of everyone who's been wronged and hurt by this rotten system of values. Her declaration of war turns into a shooting star of hope for all the undesirable ones who are left wandering in the dark after society discarded them like they were pieces of trash. Not everything is written in the stars though. Just because family bonds fall apart, it doesn't mean that heroes or villains can't be born out of those missing links. When you place a bet, the outcome may not be what you expect, so always think twice before you jinx it.